Well, welcome everyone. And the subject, we'll jump right into it. Given the amount of material I want to cover with you, I think we'll move into some of it tonight. I wrote these words on the board, Svatantriya. And in many ways, this is the most meaningful concept that I can aspire to teach and to provide you a path toward knowing. That's perhaps, and in my own life. This is my life as a seeker. Sva means self. Self. Tantriya, obviously, the root of it is tantra. In short, it means dominion, self-dominion, self-rulership. And just some of the qualities then, it's self-reliance, self-actualized, self-fulfilling, self-aware, self-mastery. In the simplest terms, in the most practical terms, it means that we are not dependent on circumstances to feel the best version of ourselves. If the circumstances are great, great, enjoy them. But if they're not, who are you? What are you? Svatantriya says, I have self-rulership, I have self-dominion, I have self-providence that determines how I interact, how I face life when it's not perfect. And that's really what these methods are about. In the end, that's what it's about. We can come to a place, I know some of you recommended different countries to meet this time. They were sending me to Portugal and to Italy and to Spain. But wherever we meet in a rarefied atmosphere to practice, to meditate, to meet ourselves, to experience goodness in other people, sooner or later we have to leave. And even while you're here, you open your phone, and sooner or later there'll be news that's less than ideal. So it's not about packing ourselves away in an ashram. It's good. It's a place to heal. It's a place to concentrate. It's a place to collect strong experience of yourself in a most elevated way. But the degree to which you sustain that elevation is described in that statement. And the teachings we're going to do here over the course of these days speak directly to that. That's what we're after. Now, I'm going to jump, even though, 4 days seems long, and on the other hand, it's nothing. It's a blink of an eye in the course of our life. So we don't have a lot of time to waste. That's how I see it. By the way, one of the meanings of the word tantra is to accelerate, to go fast, because we don't have a lot of time to waste, you know? Wouldn't it be nice if you could sit under the Bodhi tree for 49 days also? Even if you were willing, who has the time? Anyone? That's what Buddha took. Buddha 49 days. Even if you were willing, could you find 49 days? No. So the point is, Tantra says, how do we get there fast? So let's talk in fast terms. In fast terms, that mastery is the mastery of the heart. In the simplest terms, and again and again and again and again and again. Buddhist, Tantric, Yogic, Vedantic, Vedic, continuously come back to the heart. Continuously. Christian tradition, Jewish tradition, consistently the revelation is the heart for where Svatantriya is born, where it arises from. Now, in some ways, this course, what it's called, I would describe it as a misnomer, because there is fundamentally no such thing as empowering your heart. Your heart has all the power it needs. It has enough power, in fact, that light that powers the heart has the same light that lights the most distant stars. It's not a question of empowering the heart. It's a question of transforming the person that perceives that light in the heart. Does that make sense? I don't have to empower my heart. What I have to do is transform the perceiver trying to see that light in the heart. And to do this, we're going to draw on 4 different traditions, because they each lead us a little bit, I would offer, further down the path to this transformation that arises from seeing our own heart. So we're transforming the mind, we're transforming the one that perceives the light in the heart. The light in the heart doesn't need any empowerment. And that's the work that we do. So why 4 different teachings? Well, first of all, if we look through the historical evolution of yoga, Vedanta, and Tantra, they consistently referred to the previous teachings. They consistently referred. It's not like Vedanta ignored yoga. It's not like yoga ignored Sankhya. Sankhya, and then yoga, then Vedanta, then Tantra. And each one is an evolute, another plateau of what was this emanation of even early Veda. Okay? And each time they drew upon the previous teachings. Shiva Sutras, which is one of the last of these texts, draws on yoga, draws on Sankhya, draws on Vedanta. So we have the luxury of, luckily, some teachers who've lit the way and that we can draw from the links in there. So first of all, in yoga, it tells us there's something to aspire to. You're in one place and you can go to another place that's better. Just like Buddha said. Buddha said, there's suffering, there's a way out. There's a cause of suffering, there's a way out. Okay, so first we have to remind ourselves that. And in this day and age, I think it's very important that we do, because the normative mind now accepts anger and division and resentment and isolation and cancellation, and in English there's this word called othering. Does this make sense to you, othering? It's taking the word other and making it a verb. That you other somebody. Be clear? It's a new kind of term. But does it make sense what it is? Yeah. They're the others. The others are the less desirables. And if you're not one of the others, then you're desirable. Right? And now more than ever, we feel justified in that, right? So, we first need yoga to turn us in the direction of where there's a better place. Yoga says, I'm here, there's potentially a better place. And that's captured in an absolute language. In absolute language, most defining part of yoga, 136. This is what I learned is the chapter 136 is the apex of the Yoga Sutras. And what it's discussing is Vishoka. Some of you have heard that word, maybe just in the last couple of years, a lot. What does it mean? It's not listen, it's become a meditation technique, yeah? But what does Vishoka really mean? It means separation from sorrow. The separation from sorrow. The place where no suffering can enter. That's Vishoka. Yes, it's become a technique, and it's become known as a technique. It is a part of a technique, but more completely, you get to Vishoka as the result of something else, of doing something. And so that's Yoga Sutra. Yoga Sutra is telling us that there's an end to suffering, and here's the method, and it's at 136. But there are critical teachings that come right before it that tell us how to prepare ourselves for it. And thus there is me trying to get there. That's called yoga. And making the endeavor, that's called abhyasa, the practice to get there. That's called yoga. That's yoga as a process. And then when I'm there, that's yoga as an experience, right? That's this connection to the light immersion that's beyond all sorrow, absorption into the light that's beyond all sorrow. But then slowly, the teachings that come later are also going to offer us some things in which we're going to also draw from. And they give us the direct experience rather than there's somewhere to go. You're already what you're looking for. In fact, when you stop looking, you're there. But if we try that too early in the game, it becomes a head trip. And we start trying to find the hall of mirror, like a hall of mirrors. You go, okay, well, if I'm there, but I'm not there, I don't feel there, am I really here? So we borrow from the Yoga Sutra and the teachings that come. We'll share that. We're going to start tonight. And then there's this idea that you are the thing you seek. And then we have to dissolve even that idea that comes in both Sri Vidya and in the Kashmir Shaivite traditions. And so those are the four schools we borrow from over the course of these days. So yoga, if you will, Vedanta, and the Kashmir school of Tantra, Shiva Sutras, and then finally Sri Vidya. More or less in that order. Those are the four schools. Each one will provide something different for us. Okay. So it's late. I don't want to go too much. I think if I go a little further into my notes, there's no pulling back, and we could be here a long time. So I don't want to go too much further. What the yoga tradition is going to offer us, I said chapter 1, 36, is about, remember, Vishoka? Remember that means without sorrow, the place where no pain can enter. And you would think, well, if there is such a thing, why is there any other teaching? Really, if there's an end to sorrow, what else do I need? Why is there 1 through 35 and then 3 more chapters? And the idea is that we need preparation. Earlier in the very beginning tonight, I said that your heart doesn't need any power. It has everything you need. But our mind needs transformation to perceive that essence. And what is that essence, especially in these later expressions of Kashmir Shaivism and Sri Vidya and Vedanta? The heart is equal to the same as your creator, however you want to conceive of your creator. The essence, the absolute, and the essence of the heart are the same. There is no distinction. The heart in that instance is, in this context, is the end of the searching for what yoga is all about. And it's the basis of what I was saying earlier, Svatantriya. To be in the world, but not be lost by it. So 136 then has some very important stages that lead up to it. And in particular, 133, 34, and 35. And we're going to go through them slowly but surely. Now, 133 in essence tells us this, is that the mind, darkened by 4 veils, cannot see the light in the heart. What are the 4 veils? The 4 veils are animosity, we're going to say cruelty, envy, and judgment. Now, this kind of starts sounding a little bit like some sins in the Christian tradition, in a little bit, don't they? They sound a little bit that way. But let's just be very clear. So the notion of it is that there are things to be angry about. There are places or people or environments where you can justify not being kind. Or it's natural to have envy. It's also very natural to judge. Comes super easy, right? Super easy. Judgment. If we didn't have judgment, we wouldn't have gossip. And if we wouldn't have gossip, what could we say to each other? We don't have anything to say. So it flows just like wine, you know, it just flows. Judgment flows, envy flows, cruelty. And cruelty sounds really mean, like, you know, you guys are yogis and yoginis, so I'm assuming you're not overtly cruel, but the tradition, you know, you haven't really beaten anyone up recently, haven't been any fist fights, I'm assuming. Patricia, I'm not so sure. No. Just checking with you. But what it is the withholding of love is called cruelty. It's not overt. It can be overt, but in this group, it's not about avoiding overt cruelty, it's withholding love. You know? And I was thinking about this, I was journaling the other day, and something flashed in my mind, because over my lifetime, I have 4 children, and more than once I've been asked, who do you love the most? Mostly by my children, by the way. But the answer came to mind. It's the one who needs the most love in that moment is the one I love the most. Right? Compassion is not the withholding of cruelty. It's actively loving. And part of that actively loving is knowing how to love them in that moment. The one whom needs the most love gets the most love. That's the opposite of cruelty. Mm-hmm. So you think about that. Do you hold love from anybody? Ever? Just a little bit. How about yourself? Is there anything, any pain that you carry that you haven't tended to? So even to ourselves, we can be cruel. Not overtly, you know, passively, it seems, but it's still a form of withholding compassion. This is our starting point. Over the course of this week, my hope is that I will give you techniques to resolve each one of these four things. Because the journey, we can't get to the end of this journey as it's described if you want to hold on to those things. Now, again, in this day and age, we're kind of appraised of everything that's happening in the world. The moment you get out of class, you can just see, and I get the New York Times, they flash things on my screen. I gave them permission to do that, so I know when this happens and that happens and this one happens. There's plenty to be angry at. There's plenty to have despair about. There's plenty. But if you want to reach the end of these teachings, you must resolve it. It's not about whether it's justifiable. It doesn't work. It's incompatible. It is. There's plenty of justifiable anger, but it's incompatible with reaching the summit of yogic wisdom. That's all. So this is enlightened self-interest. So we have to learn how to walk this very fine line between being practical in the world and aspiring to the highest in our yoga. Aspiring to the highest in the yoga means you have to resolve this. Doesn't matter how long you can look in your third eye and see light. You could do that for 10 minutes, 12 minutes, 23 minutes. There's all sorts of things the teachings say. If you can do it if you can hold prana, thought, if we can hold our Atman, that's the soul or will, our thought, our prana, and our mantra still, steady, dharana, for 23 minutes, something very amazing is going to happen to you. Guaranteed. They spell that out, all right? If you can do that, and yet 5 minutes after you open your eyes, you have the same patterns of anger you did before that happened, not much will happen. This is really the litmus test of advancing your path. So that's where we're at. That's a kind of introduction of what we do, and they're taught in that order, by the way, specifically. So we have to find resolution in that order. The hardest one is judgment. At the end, that's the most challenging. So we'll wait to that. We'll wait for a few days for that to happen. And why not? And then, but the techniques immediately begin to give you a lighter heart, a little bit more proximity to Svatantriya. I can say it personally. That's my experience, So it's not helpful if you're waiting around judging those who are judging you to stop judging you. You have to stop judging the ones who are judging you. Sooner or later, if you want peace. Okay? So that's my 2 cents. And we can do a practice based on it, starting with tonight. Are there any questions at all with what we've started with? And it really gets super, 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 super amazing. And we underestimate. It's impossible to really even a way of understanding this heart of yours that's unburdened by these very human characteristics. It's just almost impossible. while the mind has these veils covering it, it's impossible to imagine the fullness of the heart that dwells, that can be revealed to a clear mind. So that's what we'll do. And over the course of 4 or 5 days, we can make a lot of progress.